Good evening, everyone, and I hope everyone are feeling well and you're keeping safe. And in this extraordinary times that we are at, today we have something that I would like to look at, and a few people have shown interest, and it's about empowerment. And so I decided, okay, how can we do this? Empower to empower. What is empowerment? And we will be looking at the components of empowerment: confidence and rebuilding, self-belief, power and control in relationships, and mindfulness. And I just want to say that as far as my understanding goes, having self-determination in yourself and in the communities around you in order to enable them to represent their interests in a responsible and self-determined way and acting on their own authority. My guest today will further give us an insight about this. And so without much ado, I will introduce you to two of my great and wonderful guests. I have with me today Sharon Rea, who is not only, what can I say? She is a founder for Our Hope, Their Future, and I will let her tell you a little bit more about that. So hello, Sharon, and welcome to my show.
Hi, how are you? And thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Sharon. We will go into a bit more in depth of what you do and, what this Our Hope and Their Future is about, and, what we can offer our viewers today. My next guest is Natalie King, founder of Natalie King Coaching. And again, she will tell us a bit more about what all of this is about. But, straight away, I'm thinking Natalie King, the name King says it all for me anyway. But welcome, Natalie. Welcome to my show.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And thank you for inviting both of us to come and talk about empowerment. And I look forward to explaining a bit more.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, ladies. So what I will say is I'm not sure which one of you would like to define empowerment for us today, but I think we all have our own kind of, a view and thought about what we think empowerment is. I will start with Sharon, if she can tell us what she does and, why is she here today with us. So I'll start with Sharon, and maybe Sharon can define a little bit about what empowerment is. So Sharon, over to you.
Okay, then. Well, basically, I'm what I would call the life change expert. And that is where I help my clients change their lives totally, body, mind, and energy. Now, when I looked at my clients and I looked at the total global pandemic that's surrounding us at the moment, and I said, what can I do to help? And I looked at all my training and I looked and thought, I'm looking at the critical care frontline workers, 70% of which are currently demonstrating signs of traumatic stress disorders. And that's where the idea for Our Hope, Their Future came from. Our hope, because at the moment they are our hope. Strangely, not just now they should be our hope, but they are our hope the whole time. And their future is what we should be worried about, because what they have to see and witness and deal with on a day-to-day basis is totally out of their remit. Most doctors and nurses go into work with a plan, and they know what they're going to have to deal with day in, day out. No emergency that we think is an emergency to them, because they have dealt with that before. But this global pandemic threw out the rule book. The biggest play-by-play one that they had done with was the global pandemic of influenza. And that's what they had trained on. They had never trained on anything like this. So then out of that came links with different therapists around the world. It involved me joining networks of people and meeting Natalie. And then I came up with this idea that it's not just critical care frontline workers are struggling with their own ability to deal with this issue, but this current situation and current climate has brought out a lot of other issues. One of them being confidence and self-belief. And when someone has been locked away in a lockdown scenario for quite a while, then they start to fear things. And the way I liken it as when you go to, or when you're in a war-torn country, you see a sniper, you duck. You hear a gunfire, you duck. You don't go out and thunder and lightning. But with this pandemic, nobody knows when it's going to get you. So
if I can just say something to that empowerment can have like many different meanings, as I mentioned earlier, to different people. And it's depending again on their experiences, circumstances, hopes and dreams, from what I'm hearing from you, Sharon. If I can move on to Natalie, if Natalie can say something on that, and then, we can go on to a little bit more details about, how we can, explore the rest of the topic issues. So Natalie, what can you add on to that?
Well, for me, empowerment is being able to empower yourself to follow your dreams, to speak your voice, to speak your truth. I'm very much into confidence. I'm a trained confidence coach, but I'm also a public speaker. And when you put the two together, you very much have a way that you are then become confident to speak your truth, to speak your story. And this gives you a sense of empowerment, because when you're able to say what you need to say, whether it's an experience you've had, whether it's something you want to pass on or teach, or something that you've learned from your own past, there are others who need to hear your story. And that is an empowerment in its way, is that you then have the power to pass on knowledge to help somebody else. And this for me is almost like a personal passion of mine, because I've seen how, especially recently in the last 6 months, how confidence has been eroded. So people who I've known were confident before March are now have lost their way, have lost their confidence in a way, because they've had their power taken away from them. And I'm not talking about power as in muscle power. I'm talking about a power of making a decision of leaving your house, decision on your business. That is a power that's been taken away from you, and you feel lost, you feel alone. And empowerment is about getting that back again. It is about, you know what, I can make the decision to take my business from face-to-face to online, or actually I'm going to choose to do X, Y, and Z to empower myself in this situation where I have no power. And that then comes with the confidence and the speaking your truth, whether it's, vocally or in any way that you can.
Yeah. Are we saying that empowerment can be categorized in different types? I mean, what ranges of empowerment are we talking about here? Sharon, maybe, could say something on that.
Empowerment is different for each and every single person. To me, empowerment would have a vastly different meaning to Natalie's meaning of empowerment. To me, is taking the worst case scenario that you can put at somebody, and that person has the ability to deal with it in a way that doesn't affect their values and beliefs, but they deal with it in a way that makes them quietly confident knowing that they can handle whatever is coming in their way. With women have a great support network, and women tend to yap and give out and have great support networks around them, from family, friends. Men, on the other hand, tend to hold it all in, because it belittles the idea of masculinity, to actually show
So,
weakness by actually
yeah,
speaking.
if I can just say to that, is that factual information, or where are we getting it? What source are we getting these, kinds of views from? Where are we finding that, men are in categorized in a certain way to women? What source are we getting that from?
We're getting that source from, well, both of us have done a lot of training. Number one, I work a lot with the science of the mind. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I'm master practitioner of NLP, timeline therapy. I'm also qualified in domestic violence. And when you qualify with domestic violence, then you have to learn the basic ecological differences between men and women. And men are thought, and it's not so much not thought, but it's the way that we are brought up. It's the way that we are brought up from birth, to look at the different gender identities and the values and the beliefs that comes from each one of them. And men as a whole will tend to hold in their problems. My clients have taught me that for a man to cry is to show a sign of weakness. I've been currently working with the man that has started International Men's Mental Health Day 5 years ago. And he is very passionately involved in promoting mental health amongst men, because it is something that hasn't been really looked at, and men need to learn that they have the ability to be compassionate themselves, and that they need to, show that they have the soft side, but that's not in no way diminishing their identity and who they are. But I mean, I'm currently working with a young adult who has very conflicted gender identities, and because of that, and because of the way they've been brought up, their confidence, their self-esteem, their self-belief, everything is gone. And to empower that person to go from not wanting or not believing that they could go to college, not believing that they could achieve anything in their lives, to actually...
Can I say safely that most probably social, educational, economic factors, political, and even psychological factors have played a part. Whether you're a man or a woman, you've got mixed emotions of not knowing, where you're heading or who you are. All these factors, it sounds like, could they be playing a part? And do we have anything that either of you could share, maybe in your own personal situation where you went through a certain experience, to be able to safely say, well, this is how I dealt with it?
Well, one thing I just wanted to say was that generations also play a big role in the stereotypes. Is if you look at the 50 plus generations, very different to the 30 to 50 and even the late teens to 20-year-olds, because of, as you said, social, what we've seen on TV or in the magazines, or what we've been brought up to believe. But it's also a big thing is cultural as well. I noticed personally a big difference coming from, I don't know if you've noticed, it's a slight accent, but I grew up in South Africa, and it's very different. The culture and the male stereotype and the female stereotype is very different to when I then came to the UK. I was like, whoa, this is quite different because of being shown different ways, having different influences from whether it's TV, magazines, newspapers, and even your own families. But you also notice a difference in the different cultures within the UK. And I find that really fascinating in a way, is how we are brought up, even though you've got all these different influences, sometimes your culture just stays with you. And even I'm involved with a lot of South Africans in the UK, and I often find the stereotype that I grew up with or in South Africa, I'm like, whoa, this is England now. Why haven't you changed? But they don't know how to change, or they haven't thought that they need to change, or they haven't acknowledged it. So it's very much an instinct. It's very much just the way they are. And when I have said, but you being a typical South African male, they're like, yeah, but what's wrong with it? And when I sort of explain a little bit, they're like, I hadn't even noticed. So a lot of the times it's an unconscious way that is just something that you've grown up with or been shown or taught, and that's the way it is. But when you plant that seed and say, well, actually, have you thought about like this or in a different way? Some of them were like, nope, I'm done. Or some of them are like, that's actually really interesting. Can we have a conversation? Okay. And that, just bringing in that empowerment, that's a different form of empowerment, is thinking of something differently.
We do have a call-in number for those people who would like to call in. The number is 0208 1234507. I know a few people wanted to call in because that they have probably a concern or a view that they may want to share. But again, do call in and join us. The number is 0208 1234507. And do call in, and it's on the screen there for our viewers. We have two amazing life coaches here, who can take on board some of the questions that you may have, and hopefully address and give you some sort of ease. We are hoping for this. If I could just go back to Sharon. Sharon, I believe some sort of fear may have involvement of holding back people, and I think that is your area, I believe, where, some sort of fear could hold you back from opening up, whatever it is. If I could ask, is there an experience of yourself that you could share with us today? For the benefit of our viewers. And how you've gotten over it or got through it, and what kind of suggestions people could take from that, because it is quite a significant thing, just to have fear in yourself for anything, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, the two major fearful episodes that I've been through in my life. One was on the 9th of February 2004. I was diagnosed with an illness. On the 26th of February 2004, I was told that the medication that I was starting that day, if it didn't work, I would have been dead before the end of the year. At the same time, the consultant said to me, if you want to live, do not change your attitude. This is something that I didn't take on board at the time, because obviously I was taking a lot more on board. The severity of my illness. Would I see my then 11-year-old grow up? Would I see her finish school? Would I see my 3-year-old start school? In the August time, I found out that that medication didn't work, and I had to go on to a second lot of treatment. A year later, I gave birth to my third daughter, and it was standing room only in the theatre. Unfortunately, the following May, I had to leave my house with my daughter, a car, a changing bag, and my other 2 children in school. I had made the decision to leave my partner and to take the help that was being offered me. My 2 children were taken out of school by social services, and I went into a refuge. I successfully, with the police, succeeded in prosecuting him. Now, fear I have in buckets, but those 2 experiences have taught me that your mindset and the way you apply your mind can help you overcome anything. And I mean anything. 3.5 years ago, I was told I was going to be in a wheelchair. The wheelchair is parked in my hall. And I'm here today after completing all my qualifications, all my training, and not just here to say that I can help because I've done the training. I have lived nearly every situation, from being diagnosed with a terminal illness, severe domestic violence, to actually somebody marrying me on a second occasion, and I found out 1.5 years into the marriage that he married me for a visa. So yes, I have literally dealt with practically every situation that you can come across.
Wow.
So being there, done that, and nothing shocks me anymore. I know that post-traumatic stress, out of all of those incidences, has played a major factor in who I am. But I also know that with the right help and support, that traumatic stress can no longer be the prison that it seems to be. Which is what, I mean, I have been empowered through the teachings and learnings that I have learned, through the people that I meet, the support network that I now have. And also, I believe that even if I can change one person to change a fear to something that they love, or change that fear, walk away from that fear, blow through that fear, and literally walk over the rubble of whatever is left, and actually then live the rest of their life, which is my motto: one life, one way, your way.
Thank you for sharing all of that with us. I mean, there are many out there, who are listening, our viewers. There must be many different kinds of fears going through them. If they were to, again, seek help or information, how extreme can a situation get? I mean, if maybe Natalie can say something on that, have, with your clients that you've had, have you come across where a situation obviously varies from person to person? How extreme does it get before they reach out for help?
Well, reaching out for help is very much a a personal, everybody has their own limits. And I'll give you a little analogy, a little story. So this is a story. It's not a true story or anything, but on a veranda in one of these houses in the middle of America, there is a grandma and her grandkid sitting on the veranda. Grandma is rocking on her rocking chair, as they do. And every now and again, the mangy dog turns over or moves and yelps. And the grandkid says, "Grandma, why does the dog keep yelping? Why doesn't he move?" And the grandma says, "Well, he's lying on a nail that's poking into him." And the grandkid says, "Well, why doesn't he move?" "Because it's not painful enough yet." And this is like an analogy of, we need that nail to be painful enough to make that first move. And everybody has that different levels of pain.
Sure.
So sometimes somebody will leave sooner than somebody else, and somebody won't leave because they've not necessarily reached that breaking point, that proverbial straw of breaking the camel's back. And it is, you can't tell somebody that they're at that breaking point because only they know. And it's the same with anything, whether it's an addiction or it's in a violent relationship, or in my case, it was one bad job after another. I needed that nail to become very painful before enough is enough. And everybody has that different level. And some people say, "But why do you stick it out for so long?" And there's no one size fits all here.
So person to person, we can see it varying. You mentioned something about, in your work, place, how it's, come across. So we've touched upon, people's relationships and personal lives. What kind of situations can we say about employees in an employment? What could they be going through, and how can we fit empowerment in there so that there's some sort of benefits for them? Can maybe either of you can say something on that?
And I was actually talking about this earlier to another business person. One of the issues at the moment is a lot of self-employed people, and myself included, in March lost our businesses overnight. And what do you do? How do you pivot it or anything? And a lot of employed people were, "Well, I've still got a job, I'm being furloughed." I mean, this is all over a process. But now what is happening is there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear is business owners are coming out the other side, in a way, having worked hard and tried to change their businesses. But if you're employed, how secure is your job? And this is something that's really causing a lot of fear in the workplace for employees, because they don't know, will the company survive? Is the company downsizing to save money? Do I have to go back into the office? Do I want to go back into the office? So there's a lot of fear around being an employee at the moment, because even these big companies are laying off people. You look at the news on a daily basis, who's losing 350 people, who's shutting 350 stores. And that is causing a lot of fear. And again, it comes to losing the power and having to find the empowerment to say, okay, am I going to keep this job? Do I speak to my employer, or do I find another solution? Do I look at what else can I be doing? What do I do? But how far is that pain point? How sharp is that nail that's poking into them? But
surely, when employees are given the tools and the resources, which they need to successfully manage their own projects, for example, and they have a goal that they're working towards, surely the benefits could be endless. Having been empowered, that employee is most likely to go that extra mile. I mean, would they not?
They would, because if you think of yourself, if you are nurtured, if you are looked after, and you are trusted, even the basic trusted to do something and acknowledged on what you're doing, you will go that extra mile, because we want to better ourselves. We want to help. We want to be part of something. And if you feel that, you will go that extra mile. And a lot of employers are looking at ways to help their staff. But if you are sort of hanging out there, you don't know what's happening, you struggling to come to terms with what's been happening, you've most probably juggled homeschooling and your job, and have you got a job? And then you're getting a company that's maybe not as supportive, maybe they're not communicating with you. Communication is very important. And if they're not communicating with you and saying, you know what, this is what we're thinking, this is what's happening, do you have a say, do you have an opinion? What's going to happen is we make up our own stories in our heads, we come up with our own conclusions, but they're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy employees, because they're going to be in fear. And fear does not generate happiness. Doesn't matter how much you try, it just doesn't.
Yeah. Sharon, the employees, for example, for them to feel empowered, sometimes, if we put ourselves in the employee's position, maybe if that employee was given some sort of authority to use their own initiative, give them that space, again, as I mentioned, give them all the resources that's needed, and then they could come back knowing that they have some sort of accountability, to produce. How will that result? Is that a positive thing? Sharon, if you could say something on that.
Well, anything that opens a dialogue is a positive thing. Anything that brings subjects like empowerment, mental health, and people taking responsibility for their own actions, anything that brings that into the open is an amazing thing to happen. The only way that you can empower your employees is to be open and honest with them, and to also acknowledge that they are adults, that they have to take responsibility for their own actions, just like you do. But as an employer, you are ultimately responsible for the safety of your workforce. And part of that responsibility is also ensuring that you train them in the right way to deal with the situations in the right way. And it's also about making sure you've got the right people in the right jobs. But everybody keeps talking about the new normal. What is normal? Whose definition is normal? And that's where things get difficult and confusing, because nobody knows what the next number of months are going to bring. So it's a case of, right, okay, well, we've had this playbook. This is the way we used to do things. But now let's sit down together and work out a plan of action. And it's only by acknowledging that your employees are part of your team, then you will get 110% out of them, because they will then feel valued, appreciated, and
empowered.
Exactly.
Do you think there are enough in the workplace, enough motivation, confidence building sessions or training, whatever you want to call it, happening? Or, what would you suggest? If it's not, maybe there are some organizations doing that, but for those who are not, what can we say to them? at the end of the day, whether you're an employee, whether you're in a personal relationship, where, it's all to do with human beings. And again, what Natalie mentioned, that communication is really, really important. So Natalie was nodding your head, you were there saying, there are probably not enough motivation, confidence build up sessions or training happening. Why do you think that?
Confidence and motivation and I'm very much generalizing now, but it is almost like those people, the woo-woos, do that. You don't need it. You just need to know how to plug a computer and do your job. All the other stuff is extra, and some companies don't want to pay that extra because they don't see it as value, because you can't put a value on it. You can't see what's happening. If you send somebody to train how to, I don't know, build blocks, and they come back and they're building blocks and that's bringing in money, they can see that. But confidence and motivation, you cannot see the value of what you've invested in, because first of all, it's a process, and it's a slow process. It's not an overnight process, but it's not necessarily something that you can, oh yes, that person went on that confidence course, look at them, they're confident straight away. It's a slow thing, and this is where it comes down to the bottom line, basically, is money and cost. But I'm a great believer in finding your own power and finding and empowering yourself. So as an employee, or even middle management or an owner of a company, is don't wait for somebody to fix your problem. You have the power to go and fix your own problem. So if you find that you want confidence is something that you want to be dealing with, or you want to become more motivated, find courses, find workshops, vidcasts, podcasts. There's a lot of information out there. Find it for yourself. Empower yourself. Don't wait for somebody to give it to you. But as an organization, if you motivate your staff and you help your staff with the non-visible education, so the mindset, the changing of who they are, their beliefs, their personal beliefs, like, am I worth it? Self-confidence. The value that you're giving to your staff member is they will pay that back tenfold because they feel valued. But you might not see that in your bottom line or bank account straight away, but in the long run, you will actually receive double, triple of what you've invested in your member. But that is something that a lot of organizations need to learn. And it's something that management need to push more to have on offer for their staff. But unfortunately, at the moment, it's one of those things that's very much put at the very bottom of the pile, because a lot of organizations are still in survival mode. They're still trying to see if they're going to survive or not. And when it says, well, can we help your staff? Can we help your staff have confidence? It's like, no, we need to deal with the electric. We need to deal with how we're going to pay the rent. So it's,
Well, things are going to happen that we are not going to like, and from what you're saying, focus on yourself, be open to the possibilities that could be out there. And again, the mindset which you mentioned, you know your ability, you know what you're capable of. I'm getting the feel that you have to have trust in yourself, right? To be able to get out there and say, do you know what? I know what I'm capable of. I know what my abilities are, and not always get disheartened.
There a little bit in that.
Sure.
Some people don't know what they're capable of, and fear is actually limiting their beliefs in themselves.
Yeah.
And also another point from when I was listening to Natalie, even pre-pandemic, we had these issues where an employer would bring in someone to do some training for everybody a generic training, but people learn in different ways and they learn at different levels. So if you're coaching or you're training somebody at, let's say, a level 4, I'm just using this for an example, the person that's training is training at a level 7, then the person at a level 4 is not going to take in the training. You're just wasting your money. So training has to be tailored for each individual in a certain way. But again, we are hindered by fear in what we can achieve. And again, you have to fear it, but then you have to acknowledge the fear, but you then have to find out what you're fearing to be able to acknowledge your own capabilities. So even though it's great, it's brilliant to gain confidence, but you've got to find out what you're gaining confidence from.
Sure.
So it's very easy when you can say, oh, I'm afraid of death. I don't want to die this year. That's an easy one. Strangely enough, that's one of the easiest ones to answer. But it's also, in a way, it's a wake-up call, because once you've dealt with that, there's pretty much nothing else you can, that's going to fear you. Nothing else is going to frighten you. However, if you've been brought up perfectly normal childhood, everything is perfectly rosy, and then there's something holding you back, it's a case of, right, what is holding you back? But unless you can figure out what is holding you back, then you can't actually figure out where you're going. And some of the decisions and the goals and the dreams that you will have made in that fear mindset. Whereas if you take away the fear and you figure out what the fear is, take it away, change it, then that'll turn you into setting different dreams, goals, aspirations, putting you on a different life path maybe. Nobody knows until they can actually figure out what that little niggle or that, I call it a little chimp on my shoulder, or a little, that little voice at the back of your head that's going, no, you can't do it. Why can't I do it? And it's only when you figure out why you can't do it and what that fear is, that's when you can move forward. And yeah, that's basically where I'm coming from, because you can't.
Well, it sounds like you've got to know what the problem or the pain is, or where it is, to be able to say, right, this is what needs doing. And then the next step is, how am I going to do it? And again, from what Natalie has mentioned, different people have different levels of tolerating that pain, for example, before they can say, right, I need to do something about it now, otherwise I will fall apart. So for some people, that level of pain would probably be different. Someone's small pinch will be another person's, huge injury, if I can put it that way. We are coming almost towards the end of our show. If I can ask, Natalie, if you could say anything else you'd like to add on, or if there are anything upcoming that you would like to mention, that maybe our viewers can use that as a benefit, and any other information line or website that they can go on. And then again, same for Sharon as well. It's just I can't believe time's flying by all of a sudden today. So Natalie, anything you could just say to finish off shortly?
One thing is, take the power in yourself and make the choice to change within your life. Don't wait for somebody else to fix whatever's the issue with you. But if I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook under Natalie King Coaching, you can find me. If you want to have a conversation about confidence or about how you can make the changes. And when we talk about changes, we're not talking about massive changes. We're talking about small changes done, or the same small change done every day makes a big difference. And you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Come and have a chat with me. I'm passionate about confidence, and I'm really passionate about helping you to make those small changes. Don't have that nail poking into you constantly. But one thing that is coming up that Sharon and I are both really excited about, I know she will also explain it, is the Empowerment Days. We have 3 days coming up, starting in October and November, 2 dates in November. It's International Days, and they are the Empowerment Days. And we will be going more in depth with what we spoke about today. I'll leave Sharon to explain that a bit more. But it's been really fantastic being here, and I've really enjoyed it. And I've got some bragging rights now. I'm the first person that I know within my circle, other than Sharon, who's done a vidcast. So I have bragging rights.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. It was amazing. And I hope our viewers out there, have taken something on board and again, it's like, even if it is one thing, making a difference in somebody's life, you've achieved something on that. Sharon, if, you could add on and tell us, what else is upcoming, and just if we can wrap up shortly.
Okay, well, the 3 dates are October the 22nd, which is international. They're the first of their kind. They're online international conferences. One is for women, one is for men, and one is for the LGBTQ plus communities. And we'll be working with an extraordinary woman called Elise, and she'll be showing us how to use mindfulness to focus in on the problem, how we can find that nail or find that little bit that's holding us back, and then using tools like quantum linguistics, quantum physics, for those that are of the scientific persuasion, or we'll be working with emotions. We'll be working with a lot of different tools between us to actually break down those fears. We've got some pretty awesome guest note speakers. And then we also have, we build you back up. So we'll help you find the problem. We'll help you knock the problem down. We'll then give you the most awe-inspiring guest speakers. We give you 3 months access to us in private, closed Facebook groups. And on top of that, we leave you on top of the world, knowing that because you dealt with that one thing that's holding you back, that you can live the rest of your life. I'm on all the usual social platforms. I'm under the Life Change Expert, because that's what I do. And I believe that it's like the ripple effect. You put a stone into the pond and it ripples out. So that's why I have trained in both body, mind, and energy. I have international energy development courses that are starting in October. But those spaces are very limited at this point, which I'm really happy to say. And yes, we're obviously announcing these International Empowerment Days, which have never been done before. So it's bringing people from all over the globe together to work together to affect change.
Excellent.
Both personally, but then also to provide the support and the continuation of that support. And obviously, I mean, if they want to come work with any one of us individually after that, then that's great. But we will be putting a lot of these things on, and you'll find it under Fear It, Love It, and Change It. Fear It, Love It, Change It.com.
Excellent.
And there's a Facebook group, Fear It, Love It, Change It.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, you've both ladies summed it up very well. Anything for the benefit of our viewers, and we're always aiming for positivity. Every day is not the same day. And again, I'd like to thank both of you for coming on the show, sharing your experiences at the same time, and just putting a few things out there for the general public, that whether it's in your personal life or in the workplace, there will always be something that we are not going to like, but how we deal with it, how paced we are, depends on us really. How soon can we recognize something before we are in too much of any kind of a pain. But again, I'd like to thank both of you for coming on, and I'm sure our viewers have taken on something from you ladies, and I really do hope to see you again soon on the show as well. So thank you again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Well, we have learned that we should be focusing on ourselves, and that there will be things that will be happening that we don't like. We should be open to possibilities. They're all part of empowerment. Trust yourselves, run your own race, and network. Love what you do and do them with passion. Hold yourself with grace. That's what I say, and embrace those imperfect moments. And all I can say now is, if you like what you see, then comment and share our podcast, and do get in touch with me for anything you would like to raise, whether it's a concern or to celebrate. And so there you have it. And let's talk about it with SABIA KHATUN here on Vodcast. Stay safe, stay blessed.